What if you could uncover the last secret thoughts of one of the 20th century's greatest poets? Not the polished poems he's famous for, but something raw, a direct attempt to say what he finally understood as he faced the end of his life. Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore today with Rainer Maria Rilke. Just think about that line. It's the dramatic opening from a translator's preface to a lost manuscript, something discovered in a locked cabinet long after Rilke's death back in 1926. And get this, it wasn't just another collection of drafts. No, this was something else entirely, something that kind of reframes everything we thought we knew about the final years of this literary giant. And this is it. It was called Die Offene Schrift, which translates to the Open Writ. It's an 87-page manuscript he's subtitled An Attempt at a Statement. You can just feel the urgency, right? As Rilke felt his life ending, this was his last-ditch effort to say directly what his famous, beautiful poems could only ever hint at. So where does a final journey like this even begin? Well, for Rilke, it started with a really startling act of letting go. To see what was waiting for him, he first had to change his entire relationship with his own life's work, with his poetry. This slide just captures that shift so perfectly. You see, Rilke once saw his poems as these magnificent monuments. He called them cathedrals of breath that he had built. But in this final understanding, he saw them in a totally different light. They weren't the destination anymore. They were the journey. They were ladders, he wrote, I have climbed. And now, to see what was at the top, he had to leave the ladder behind. But letting go of his life's work, that was just the first step. The next one was even bigger, letting go of the self. And this brings us right to the heart of the manuscript, this idea of his own identity just dissolving, an experience he found not terrifying, but profoundly liberating. He had this incredible term for it, the thinning membrane. He talks about lying in darkness one night and just feeling the boundary of his own body become, well, uncertain, and then it dissolved completely. But he wasn't floating outside his body or anything like that. He was expanded. He could feel the mountain outside his window, the valley below, not as things out there, but as parts of a consciousness that he now shared. He describes this whole process as removing the furniture of the self. And just look at what gets removed. First, his ambition, any concern for his reputation, his legacy, it just lifted away. Then went his resentments. Old grudges, old injuries, they just became uninteresting. And finally, his attachments, his need for other people to be a certain way for him. So what was left? A state of just pure, unburdened awareness. So, once the self isn't the center of the universe anymore, what happens? Well, it changes your view of, everything. For Rilke, it completely transformed his understanding of the two biggest mysteries we all face, love and death. I mean, it's the question, right? Every artist, every thinker, every person grapples with it. But from this brand new perspective, Rilke came up with an answer that basically turns our common understanding completely on its head. Rilke's conclusion here was so radical. He came to believe that love isn't about two separate people trying to build a bridge to each other. No. For him, it's the memory of a unity that was always there. We were never truly separate to begin with. Love, then, became the simple act of recognizing that we are all just carved from the very same whole. And his view of death changed just as dramatically. It wasn't an ending, it was a release. It was the dissolving of the person, that whole construct of Rainer Maria Rilke, with his specific history, his name, his habits. And he called this a relief. Can you imagine? A relief. Like finally setting down a heavy bundle you didn't even realize you'd been carrying your entire life. In his last pages, Rilke doesn't just describe these incredible experiences, he actually distills them into this powerful set of principles. It's really nothing less than his final credo, his summary of what he had come to recognize as the true nature of reality itself. Just look at these points. Existence is a single, unified thing, like an ocean expressing itself as different waves, but it's all still the ocean. Consciousness isn't something our brains make. Our brains are more like radios, tuning into a signal that's already there. And so, death and love, they're simply transitions and recognitions within this one unified field. It's this incredible vision of profound continuity. This, for me, is one of the most beautiful and profound statements in the entire manuscript. His whole life's work, all his poetry, the singing, that was the purpose. But it wasn't the final destination. It was all a prelude to something deeper, a silent understanding that the singing was always pointing toward. And that silence, he wrote, was its deepest music. You know, the translator of the Open Writ said that Rilke didn't just write a manuscript, he opened a window. And through it, we get to glimpse a totally different way of seeing our lives, our loves, our mortality. And so the final question isn't really about what Rilke saw, it's about us. Now that the window's open and all this light is coming through, what do we do with it?